And we had the great wedding and lovely marriage starting to this divorce with Barnaby Joyce, and now he's independent, set to be One Nation. This is damaging on an ongoing basis, Kerry, because it just coalesces that vote on the right. Pauline Hanson has been an effective politician. Whatever you say about Barnaby Joyce, he is too.
Yeah, but, we still haven't heard Barnaby, say those words, that he's joining One Nation yet. And I note that there's been some pretty serious criticism from his former colleagues. For example, Senator John Williams has just been, Wacker is bent out of shape completely about what Barnaby's doing. And understand, I'm sure you would know, Kieran, and Bruce probably as well, that Wacker and Barnaby were very, very good mates. They were very tight. So it is pretty disappointing what Barnaby's doing, dangling everybody around. I may or may not. I mean, I'm still waiting for him to say that what he's actually going to do is retire from the parliament. And let me say, that would be a good thing for everybody. It would be good for him. It would be good for the National Party. It would be good for the people in the community who would then have a better understanding of what they may or may not have to face at a next election in terms of a candidate. So who knows? He still might decide that he's going to find a wonderful opportunity in the private sector. There may be some very powerful friends who are happy to take him on and put him on a board somewhere, and maybe that's what he's going to do. We can only wait and watch, and we can only, in my case, hope that that's the outcome that he's actually looking for.
When you look at the energy debate today, Bruce, the AEMO report, another warning about the stability of the grid beyond 2027. They'd say that Eraring might have to remain for longer, the coal-fired power station. The clunky transition, the vulnerabilities in it, the political opportunity, really, that's there for the coalition, and yet that distraction remains from elements of it. Because if they can just sharpen up the message, power bills, about stability, about supply, then you can see a path forward, but not if there are constant, internal distractions and fights and battles.
That's exactly right. It doesn't matter how good the external message is, if the public looks at them and sees that they are a disorganised rabble, then that's really bad. I mean, I've been inside governments that have had that appearance about them as well. And I've been in oppositions which have tried to exploit that. And I can tell you, it is not a good place to be if you're the incumbent and you've got those problems. But as to AEMO
should the
itself,
government be worried about that AEMO warning, Bruce?
Well, I think that it's part and parcel of a very, very complex transition which is taking place, not just in Australia, but around the world, from carbon-powered energy, which can't continue because of greenhouse. We all know that, and we all know that if we don't sort that problem out, then the future of the planet for our children, our grandchildren, is absolutely grim. Something that has to be done, but there are uncertainties about it and the timing. And in the case of Eraring, I think the initial decision to close down Eraring was done by Origin, and then in conjunction with the Liberal government in New South Wales, they took it from 2032 back to 2027. And they've always recognised that there are going to be very significant issues in making sure that the transition takes place. I think if there was more, there had been more certainty about the transition to renewables, and there hadn't been such a political football around it, it probably would have been easier to get this sort of investment that AEMO says is absolutely necessary. But I think we're talking at the margins here. We're talking about delaying the closure of Eraring maybe by a year or two, perhaps closer to the 2032 date where it was initially flagged for closure. But the transition to renewables and that form of sustainable energy is going to happen, must happen, and I think it's really important that we get behind it. It really is.
Kerry, there's an argument here within the Liberal Party that if they can just zero in on the economics of it and unite behind that they can make a lot of ground. And as I alluded to with Bruce, there are real vulnerabilities here that they can capitalise upon, whether it be the cost promises that haven't been met, that have been, commitments that were broken, that weren't delivered on in that sense, versus, the whole stability question going forward. There are going to be further hiccups on that front as well. So there does seem a pathway here for the Liberals.
Oh, absolutely. And if I was the government, I'd be feeling a little bit nervous about the report that came out today, because they're talking about 2 years' time where we're looking at the potential of blackouts. So in the next 2 years, do we have any belief that power prices are going to come down? No. Do we have any belief that the renewable sector will be sufficiently robust that it can take over? No. And now we're talking about that there may be, because of infrastructure issues, there may be blackouts. Now, 2 years' time is getting pretty close to the next election. So if the Liberal Party and the National Party were able to concentrate their message on what is the government doing to make your cost of living cheaper, particularly in the electricity space, then they've got a very strong and powerful argument up until and including the next election, which says they haven't been able to manage this. They haven't been able to predict with enough clarity what they needed in terms of infrastructure. And I know that, you can't just blame them because it's been successive governments over a number of years, but the people who will be voting at the next election will be looking to the government in charge if their lights start turning out. And that is both for the state and federal government. If we suddenly don't have power in New South Wales, that's not only going to affect households, it's affecting small businesses, it's affecting large businesses. Yeah. Interruption to that supply is going to be an enormous issue. And, it's all well and good to say we're going to get to there eventually, but it will be the near and how and the immediate threat at coming up to, as I said, that next election that will be focusing people's minds on who to blame, and it will be the government of the day.
Yeah. And also then around the kitchen table, Bruce, because the issue of these higher prices, they're real and people are struggling with them, and there's no sign that they're going to come down anytime soon. In fact, some retail executives saying they'll keep rising for another decade. This has got to be the one of the top priorities of the government, to start driving that down, to build, a social licence around it.
Yeah, just a couple of things. First off, the New South Wales Premier has made it clear that he's open to Eraring staying open for a longer period if that's necessary. He made that statement today in the media, and I'm sure that's what will happen if they need to guarantee supply. It's about all these synchronous condensers or some process that I'd never even heard of, I must say, until today.
You're not the only one, Bruce.
but obviously something very important in the process of stabilising energy supply. Look, no one should be in any doubt that high energy prices and household energy costs is a big issue. I mean, it hits people in the back pocket all the time. And so it is an area that the government must be, and I'm sure is, very conscious of. It's a very complex problem to be dealing with. A lot of it really, though, requires a real hard look at our gas supply and the way in which it's being
But the rebate,
used.
The rebate, Bruce, do you rip the Band-Aid now? December 31, that rebate is meant to come off. Then you will see a spike in inflation, probably, as we saw in the last quarter, from energy rebates at the state level being withdrawn.
Yep, I agree. They're complex questions. Is there a real purpose in keeping the rebates in place, or does the government really have to start looking at other, more long-term measures to make sure that the cost of energy is coming down? And I'd noticed that there was a reluctance on the part of Katie Gallagher to say that they should continue with those rebates. So my gut feeling is that they will probably take them off rather than continue with creating, I guess, an artificial buffer rather than dealing with the substantive problem. And it is a big problem, but it's a government which is demonstrating that it can deal with these problems. It is artificial.
It's artificial, Kerry, because it drives down inflation in the short term, but obviously it's inflationary because it's putting more dollars out there in
exactly right. And I mean, the rebate is one thing, but I mean, when you're talking to people, for example, a friend of mine on the weekend, mum, dad, 4 kids, normal household, their electricity bill the last quarter was $5,000. I mean, $5,000. If that's $20,000 a year just to make sure that the lights are on. And yes, they may, they have a swimming pool. I'll give them that. But they need to have. They still need to turn the lights on. They still need to have the heat on. They need to have air conditioning because where they live, it's hot. But $5,000 for the last quarter, it's going to be worse the next quarter if they turn the air conditioning on. And I'm not entirely sure that the rebate is really going to be helping a lot of people. So I'm not going to tell a government or an opposition what to do about a decision about a rebate because it has all sorts of other implications. But I'm not entirely sure that it's actually getting to the people who need it and really affecting what they're paying at the end of each quarter. I'm not sure that it's really making much difference to those bills. So it'll be interesting to see. It may be the case, rip it off and then, see what happens. I don't know that people are going to actually congratulate them one way or the other at the moment because, as I said, those bills are so high, they're really hurting.
Yeah, it's a good point. And if you're going to do, a move like that, but well out from an election it does make more sense to do it now than, say, a year out from going to the polls. But Kerry, Bruce, thank you.